Among Dr. Cummins' research interests are issues relating to bilingualism and bilingual education, patterns of language acquisition and academic development amongst minority students, and the effects of teaching practices on the development of language and literacy. And his topic for today, assessing minority language children. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Dr. Jim Cummins, Associate Professor in the Modern Language Centre, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education in Toronto. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Gail. It's for me, it's a great pleasure to be here because it's like coming home in that I spent 5 cold but very pleasant years in the other half of Alberta. I was going to say the wrong half, but it's become a global concern at this point in time because in both North America, Europe and Australia, in fact in all the Western industrialized countries, there's been a large influx of students from other countries who usually don't speak the language of the host country that they've come to. And in many cases, these students have experienced academic difficulties with the result that it's very difficult to know what the source of these academic difficulties are. Is it something to do with cultural mismatch? Is it the fact that their language, the language that's spoken at home is different from the language in the school? Is it something to do with the way the school program is organized? Is there some kind of mismatch in terms of cultural expectations of learning as opposed to what the school is providing?
Canada has no national language policy. It has a national policy, as I said, focused on bilingualism, involving the 2 official languages, but other languages that define the Canadian linguistic mosaic have been left relatively amorphous and ill-defined in terms of how they fit into national and provincial policies.
For students to engage in literacies have got to be engaging. There's got to be a motivation for them to do it. They've got to want to be doing this. So it's got to be fueling growth in their identity, their sense of self-confidence and self-competence.
So the idea behind an identity text is that students invest their identities in the creation of the text. And it doesn't have to be a written text. It could be a music CD that they create. For older students, it might be a web page, it might be a video or an iMovie that they create. It could be any production where they invest their identities into the creation of this. And then once it's out there in a book or PowerPoint or something that can be shared, it holds a mirror up to students in which their identities are reflected back in a positive light.
Jim and I have known each other since the 70s as graduate students in the University of Alberta. Sharing our office together, we had long chats on bilingualism and education of the indigenous minorities. I came back to India influenced by his ideas and his vision. Professionals and practitioners of multilingual education in India, as in many other Asian countries now, continue to draw their inspiration from the work of Jim Cummins. Minority education throughout the world is enriched by the mantra given by this great guru through his phenomenal work.
I would like just briefly to talk about a book Nancy Hornberger and I edited with Multilingual Matters. Nancy and I went across to meet Jim in Toronto in 9th and 10th of December 1999. We received a very warm welcome and enjoyed Jim's company for a day and a half. We interviewed Jim, and the introductory chapter entitled A Biographical Introduction, Nancy and I tried to explain how the origins of some of Jim's ideas, particularly from his Irish background, the cultural background, the religious background, power and authority in Irish education and also in religion, which he reacted against. And that chapter contains a conclusion, a short paragraph or two, with one of my favourite quotes about Jim. It says, "Jim, born and schooled in Ireland, educated and enlightened in Canada, an advocate for tolerance, equity and justice."
Hi Jim, and greetings from Dublin. I'm recording this in the nick of time to wish you all the best for your retirement, which I dare say will be about as sedentary as my own, and also to thank you for the example of your work over many years, but especially over the last 15 to 20 years here in Ireland, where we've needed that example of rigorous research and unfailing concern for social justice in order to forge our own response to the challenges of linguistic and ethnic diversity in our educational system.
We found ways to translate concepts like common underlying proficiency and BICS, context embedded, context reduced. It wasn't easy, but we managed to translate them into Spanish, Portuguese, French, Vietnamese, Khmer. And through my colleagues who were also teaching the concepts that you taught us all, they've been translated into Quechua, Aymara, and Guarani in Bolivia, Shangana and Nyanja in Mozambique, and by now almost 20 other languages, all 11 official languages of South Africa, languages like Tetun in East Timor, and Khmer, Jirai, and Hmong in Vietnam. Those are just some examples. So your concepts, your ideas, your principles, your theories, they've all marched throughout the world in service of trying to improve education for children and adults and trying to get people to understand the importance of the home language in any kind of educational development.
One memory comes to mind in your bilingual education course. You brought in your oldest daughter, who was then 6 or 7, as an exemplar of a successful French immersion, early French immersion program. And it was always those personal touches that made such a big difference. You shared a lot.
The thing that I love to recall is the time that you had myself and others over in your home, where we had dinner and drinks and talked about how rewarding it was to pursue meaningful progressive agendas within the field. I was a master's student at that time, still debating whether or not to pursue a PhD. But those conversations on that occasion went a long way to convincing me that it was worth the effort to pursue the PhD and an academic career.
Professor Jim Cummins, you were on my thesis committee. I really appreciate your insights on my thesis on the teaching development of teachers of English in Pakistan. What I particularly value were your questions regarding identity of teachers of English. You will be happy to know that I pursued this and have conducted research on teacher identity, personal, professional, and social, in relation to teachers of English in Pakistan.
As you know, you have been very important in my career. You were there from the beginning on the search committee for the position that I got, and after that for my tenure, for my promotion to full professor, so I could not have done it without you. But most importantly, I really enjoy my work with you on thesis committee which we had several of them over the years. That was the best part of the work.
Like so many people, your work has meant a great deal to me, and I want to thank you for everything. Personally, your work has really helped me to understand my past experiences as an ESL kid. Within my own teaching in elementary schools, your work really helped me to be responsive to culturally and linguistically diverse students that I was lucky enough to teach. My research has been and will continue to be very heavily informed by your work. So much of what I've been able to see and make sense of throughout my research is because of the research that you've been so generously able to contribute to the field.
Jim, I will never forget how you really helped me to cultivate a writing style that was new to me. You said, Leonie, just make a story. Make sure make it have a beginning and a middle and an end. And Jim, you don't know how far that wealth of knowledge went for me. You were a part of my committee, and we made it through to the end. And I'm on the other side. It's not as bright as it was when it was with you, but I'm excited.
Hi Jim, this is Shijin saying hello to you with my students from Windsor. I'd like to thank you for working with me way back many years ago at OISE when I was a student. You worked as my committee member for my work with Chinese newcomer families in Toronto. And your work with language learners has always been my inspiration for my research.
As an English teacher, I always felt sort of viscerally, I felt that it was important to take into account all of the languages, cultures, backgrounds, and interests of our students. But I sometimes found it was hard to do so because in the English language teaching profession, there is sometimes a monolingual ethos where we're not always encouraged to take an interest in other students' languages. So I was so thrilled in my later career to read some of Jim's work and to find theoretical support for some of the things that I'd been groping towards in the dark.
Back in 2008, I was giving a presentation in the middle of nowhere in the States, in Wisconsin. And after the presentation, we went to this restaurant, and I saw these two ladies talking about my work. And one of them mentioned that I was Jim Cummins' student. So all of a sudden, this woman from across the table, reaches and holds my hand. She's like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe it. You're Jim Cummins' student, right? Can I at least touch your hand? Because I'm sure you've, shaken hands with him." So anyway, every time, Jim, that I attend a conference, right, and I'm feeling lonely, I actually wear my name tag and I write something like this. I was Jim Cummins' student, and it works every time, so I don't get lonely at conference.
I first met Jim back in 2009 when I sent out 3 emails to different faculty at the University of Toronto to see if I could meet with them to talk about my research. One of those professors was Jim. I never really thought that I was going to get a reply because I thought that OISE was the major leagues and that I was not ready for it. However, I got a reply from Jim saying that my research seemed interesting to him and that he wanted to meet me and talk about it. I was so excited and scared of really meeting someone you have read so much about and his work, and it was like meeting this big rock star. And then as soon as I walked into his office, he listened to me attentively and encouraged me to apply. And he is the person who made this possible.
J is for just, having a voice for inclusive and equitable education. I is for influential, to make positive changes in education. M is for multicultural, advocating for peaceful coexistence of diverse cultures. C is for critical, bridging a dialectic relationship between critical theory and critical practice. U is for understanding with open-mindedness. M is for multilingual, promoting multiliteracy practices. M is for modest as a human being. I is for inspirational, such a spirit, encouraging, motivating, and empowering. N is for nurturing, like motherhood in education. S is for sensitive to inequalities and biases in education. Now, Korean poem with Jim Cummins. 짐을 덜어주는, which means taking on other people's burdens. 커다란 나무처럼 기대어, like a big tree that I can lean against. 민중의 소리에 귀를 기울이고, willing to listen to people regardless of their position. 스스럼 없이 다가갈 수 있는 스승이자 영원한 but a friend and teacher that one can approach easily.
I'll never forget in the first class that I took at OISE, where you were the teacher, the instructor. I asked you a question about language and literacy teaching, and you answered and said, "I don't know." And I remember in that moment being very surprised that you didn't know the answer. But I now realize, having worked with you these many years, that being able to say, "I don't know," actually reflects a great deal of wisdom and knowledge about humanity and the world in which we live. And that is something that I'll carry with me for a very long time, and that will continue to inform my work.
My first acquaintance with Professor Jim Cummins' work was when I was doing my BA at the Bosphorus University in Istanbul, Turkey, enrolled in a Foundations of Language Education course. And ever since, his work has continued to inspire my own teaching and research. I'm honored and deeply grateful for the privilege of working with him as my mentor throughout my PhD and my postdoctoral work. Thank you, Jim, from the bottom of my heart.
No doubt we shall meet again before too long. In the meantime, all the best.
On behalf of all my colleagues and myself, we want to thank you for your great work and your inspiration and wish you all the best on your retirement.
De Oaxaca, México, y tuve el placer de trabajar con Jim.
Jim, I wish you the best and the best of health, and farewell, my friend. Farewell.
Cher Jim, je veux te souhaiter une retraite des plus remplies.
Jim, many congratulations on a fantastic career and a major contribution.
Congratulations on your retirement, and I look forward to reading and hearing about what you're going to do next.
But congratulations on your retirement. Sorionak in my latest added language, which is Basque, and Lokwenske in Frisian.
I just want to wish you a very happy retirement. Cheers. Relax. It's just grape juice, everybody. So, Jim, I wish you lots and lots of great grape juice during your retirement and always. Cheers again.
Hi, Jim. I just heard that they were doing this video, and I told Chris I really need to be part of this because, you know, we love you and you've been so influential, and I'm happy that we can toast to you. Felicidades, and may you go forward with more exciting work.
Hey, Jim, retirement's going to be a challenge for someone like you who is so used to life in the fast lane. So here's a more or less 30-second guide from an old pro on retirement to get you headed in the right direction. First, ditch that alarm clock. Yes, you don't need to toss out your cell phone. You just have to step on it when it rings. Calendar? Here's a nice alternative use for its pages. You, of course, will have to learn some new academic vocabulary for quick responses to suggestions such as, since you're going to be in Paris this week, how about dropping down to Tahiti for a quick lecture? No need to tell you how to respond when someone asks, hey, got time for a brewski or two? The nicest thing of all is that you are now eligible for CARP, the Canadian Association for Retired People, and you're going to get senior citizen discounts at restaurants, theaters, and pubs. Congratulations.
Jim,
I can't thank you enough. You're a wonderful scholar, an incredible inspiration, an amazing mentor. There really are no words that can express my gratitude. So I thought I would try it with this. Here's a little jig for you.